17th day of March, 6 minutes past the hour of 7, and you're definitely going to hear us roar tonight. Good evening and welcome. This is Strong and Sassy. My name is Enimo Enimado, sitting in for Na Ashoko, and sending all our love and kisses and hugs to her. We miss you plenty. And today, instead of our usual 1 hour, we have about 40 minutes because George Addo Jr. and Gary L. Smith will be taking over to bring us that game at about 7:45. But as usual, you can join the conversation. The WhatsApp line is 0244340437. And at some point, we will open the phone lines if we can. That's 0302216541. So the WhatsApp line is 0244340437. Now, this month of March is Women's Month, here at JoyFM. And we've done so many things. We've talked about women's affairs on different shows. We've also had the Women's Summit where we talked about gender-based violence and equality at the workplace. This evening, we're going to do a show. We're going to be doing a show where we talk about empowerment. And what we want to do tonight is to kind of measure how far we've come. If it's something that we talk about but are not doing as much about. I remember not a few years ago, maybe about 20 years ago, growing up, there was this advert, and if you're about my age, then you remember, and the song was "Send Your Girl Child to School," and it was such a massive hit at that time. And at that time, we were fighting for girls to go to school. And today, we're still fighting for girls to go to school, but now we're also fighting for equal pay. We're asking that we're paid the same as men. We're asking for equity. We're asking that we're giving the same opportunities. And so that fight continues. Here with me tonight to have that discussion, I have Ivy Prosper. She's a media professional and advocate for women and girls. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And then I have Keswa Opoku Aji. My sister is called Keswa, so I love that name. Keswa Opoku Ajiman, who is a natural hair blogger. You're welcome as well.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, the usual suspects, Weija. Weija, thank you for being here every time that we need you to be. We appreciate that. So we're going to dig straight into the conversation. WhatsApp lines are open, 0244340437. Tell me if you think that we're making progress in this fight for empowerment of women. I'm going to start with you, Ivy. So when we talk about empowering women, what do we mean? Because there's been so much, this feminist movement. And sometimes when you talk about empowering women, the first thing that comes to mind in a lot of people's mind is a fight against men. So what exactly are we fighting for?
We're fighting for equality. We're fighting for equal treatment. And I think a lot of the times, men in particular, and some women, misunderstand feminism. And there's an assumption that feminism means that you're trying to say that women are better than men and that you're trying to take over. But it's about us trying to get equal treatment, equal access. There's so many things that women don't have equal access to still. Something as simple as a washroom. A school may have no washroom. And for girls, girls, every time that time of the month, They need to use the washroom. And if their washroom's not there, the girl's not going to go to school. So that's something where she's not having equal access, equality for herself as a woman to be able to attend school every month for a week. She may not be there. Then she falls behind. So creating those opportunities that give us an equal playing field between the genders is what we're fighting for. It's not that you're trying to say one is better than the other. We just want an equal playing field for both.
Right. Okay, Keswa, let me come to you on that.
Oh, okay, great. So I remember a story of when I was at work once during my national service period, and I had a lot of challenges because I was female, and people believe that the choice of field that I have chosen is for men, so it's male dominated, and penetrating into that market is very difficult, very, very difficult. You hear a lot of people say that, oh, but this is for men, that is for men, and men say you cannot handle the stress of this job, and so many other comments from various people. Even women actually do say the same thing to you, funny enough. So I believe that indeed equality, you might think that it means that we are trying to put ourselves above men, but that is not so. We just want an equal playing field for both of us. If we are there and we are being interviewed for a job, if we are there, we are being paid, one should not get more than the other just because one is male and the other is female. That's just my opinion.
Right. Wager. So for the first time, maybe in a long time, or even maybe ever, we have our first Ghanaian Vodafone CEO as a woman. We have, for example, the CEO of UBA, a woman. We have Angela Dramina Jimo, the CEO for IBM, country manager for IBM. She's a woman. We have amazing women doing amazing things. We have ministers. We have women in parliament. It would appear as though we're making progress. A friend of mine this weekend described it as tokenism, as it's, sort of we're just giving women enough to keep them quiet and actually not allowing them to make progress.
I think there has been some progress from 20 years back when we started asking children to go to school. But every time we are fighting for women equality, new things come up. We realize that there are lots of holes that need to be filled. So first, we are fighting for education. And then as we are growing, we are realizing that even though education is enough, we still need to fight for more rights. We still need to be accepted in leadership or governance. So it's not really a token. We are being noticed because we are fighting. But then as we keep on fighting or we keep on pushing for more visibility, we realize that there are still more gaps that needs to be filled. Right. So I feel like we started well, the country started well, but as we are going, there's so many things to fill up. And that's the problem. We keep on noticing things. We keep on pushing for more equality. And it's like we are struggling for power. But it's supposed to be seamless. Women, men, human beings, just let us be leaders. I've noticed that we still have a gap in governance in terms of leadership. And that is, if we don't have women leading equally as men, then you realize that there's a huge gap. And what are we fighting for?
Right. So, Ivy, when we talk about this huge gap, over the past few weeks, having these summits and that kind of thing, there was one thing that came up, especially when it came to leadership, when it came to politics. The former Minister of Gender, Nanaoye Litha, was speaking, and she talked about the fact that women are very hesitant to go into politics because the things that define us as women are the very things that are used to fight against us. So, for example, there's been this bloody widow issue over the past few weeks, and with Lady Al Hassan. There's also the issues of childcare and stuff like that. You're out there, you're campaigning, you're in parliament, but there's nothing that's specifically designed or tailor-made for you. And yet the very essence of society is built on the fact that we are taking time off to have children, but space is not made for us. So, I mean, is it understandable then that we are where we are?
I don't think necessarily that it's understandable. I think it is because men are mostly in the positions of power that the accommodation is not being made for women to take the time needed when they do have children. At the end of the day, we would not have a future generation if women were not having children. So respecting the fact that she has given birth and she wants to nurture this child who is going to be a child of the future in this country or in any other country a woman may be in, I think that the accommodation needs to be made. And to make it an equal opportunity for men and women, so for instance, if you give birth and you're given time off, men should also have the opportunity to get time off too, because both parents should be given the opportunity to raise and nurture their child in those beginning formative years. I don't know how many men in Ghana would actually take
the
that
time off. Yeah.
Yes, but starting one step at a time is the way to get there. And I think when there's more women in positions of leadership, those policies can be changed and introduced. Because if you're in a room and there's, let's say, 10 people who are decision makers and only one of them is a woman, the 9 who are the men are going to vote her out. She may have ideas and suggestions, and they may just be like, well, we don't see the relevance of it. So the key is nurturing the young women to know that they do have the ability to become leaders of the future. Because I feel like the generation we are at now, like our generation, we're fighting for the next generation.
Yeah.
Because there's women who fought before us to get to where we are now. So we have to always look at it as we're fighting for the next generation.
So, for example, when you take time off work and you come back, there's so many women, so many stories of women who've taken time off work to go and have kids, and they come back and their jobs are gone. And somehow, the policies are there, the laws are there. It will never be spelt out directly as we're getting rid of you or we're demoting you because you went away to have a child. How do we fight that fight? Considering that the laws and the policies are there, but they're not being implemented, and the implementation is based on largely men understanding and appreciating, and I use that word very loosely, that this is a part of life. How do we fight that fight? Go ahead, Keswa.
Okay. So actually, funny question is, once I went for an interview and I was told point blank that when do I plan on getting married and giving birth? So that is part of the requirements or part of the interview questions.
Wow.
Yes, basically speaking, they want to know when, because they know that once you do get pregnant, there is a possibility that you're going to take time off. And once you do take time off, there's going to be a gap. So once there's a gap, who is going to fill that gap? And if the person comes and is doing way better than you, then obviously they're going to take that person over you. Do you understand? So I think that in as much as, yes, there's more speech about we nurturing the next generation and all that, but sometimes men also have to understand that it's a period in which the woman is psychologically and physically traumatized. So you have to give her the space to, in as much as she has to come out of that environment, because she has to think to do whatever it is you're given to her to do in the office space. So yes, she has to follow through. And I believe that yes, there are laws, yes, there are guidelines, there are principles, but who to go to? The person you are going to is a man. He doesn't even understand what you went through to give birth to that baby. He doesn't even feel the passion to follow through and say that no, this is wrong. Let's make sure that this person gets what he or she deserves. So in as much as you push, it gets to a certain level and it's stuck. It doesn't go further any longer.
Risha, your thoughts?
Well, I think a lot of us have to unlearn certain things. It's for us to change what has happened. There has to be like a behavioral change. We can't just push and say this is what is required, because it's stuck in a lot of people's brains that when a woman goes to give birth and comes back, she becomes slower. There's lots of excuses, or she even loses her job. So it's a behavioral, a mindset that needs to be changed. And mindsets can only be changed by consistent talking to, consistent advocacy. And maybe we would just have to slightly give up on this generation and try and implement it in the next generation. That's what I believe. When we decide to target who we want to be changed, we target the next generation from schools and try and change their mindset. That is how we can fill the gap. Right now, we'll just be pushing, but for the generation to come, at least they are learning new things that we would have to teach them.
I beg to differ. At church like this, we have a young women's fellowship where we are constantly being taught about marriage, how to keep your marriage, how to be a good wife.
Is that a young men's fellowship?
No,
being
that
taught
was
about how
actually
to be
where I
a
was
good
going
husband.
to. Not at
Right,
all.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
Not at all. And it's so horrible because they don't even appreciate what you go through when you take time off to even give birth, whilst the child is from both of you. So even within this generation, we don't even understand what that means. And then it's being taught to the next generation because you see your father, when your mom is pregnant, your father is going out there having a new wife, having a new girlfriend.
Having fun.
Yes, having fun. And your mom is waking up at 3 a.m. with the baby. Your daddy is not even there to even help or even hold on to maybe changing diapers once in a while. They even
That's
see
really
it.
Unfortunate.
Yes.
That's really,
But that's what they've been taught. That's what they
Yeah.
saw. So we do what we see. A lot of children grow up by doing what they see. And we, even if you see us, we have some characteristics that we know that our parents used to do. Like if your father used to read all the time, you start to develop reading. So a lot of people learn by seeing.
Yes.
So that's why I said, even though we are trying to push, because they've seen and they are they've seen it and it's engraved in their head and it seems normal to them. That's why we need to target. If we focus and target, we'll be able to change the next generation.
And that's why I agree with you when we were talking about, because I also said it too about the next generation, and it starts young with boys and girls. I think that a lot of people don't think about the fact that what you say to a child up until the age of five forms in their mind. It becomes a part of their character. So if you're teaching your young boys and your young girls about equality from a young age, they understand that already. And as they grow up, they have that in their mindset. They're not growing up with seeing that a woman is this way and a man is that way and that it should be like this, and not respect what it is that a woman is going through. So I do agree with you on that. We definitely have to look at the next generation, but also because Ghana is a very Christian and Muslim, and then there's traditional faith society. It's a strong faith-based country, very, very strong in faith. So if you're able to get through leaders, people in leadership, because people in Ghana obey what the leaders in the church say, obey what their leaders in their religious groups, talk about, and really, really respect them for what they have to say. And I think that if leadership in those organizations starts to look at the equality and equal treatment of men and women, then their followers may start to also look at it as, okay, then maybe we should start looking at how we're treating each other, and if we're respecting the things that the women are going through and appreciating the challenges that they're facing. Because I think sometimes when you don't put yourself in that person's shoes, you don't understand.
Right. I agree with you on that. One of my very good friends, about your point, Keswa, one of my very good friends said to me that she doesn't think that most women will have a big problem with submission if men were taught how to lead. But it's difficult to submit to a man who does not know how to lead. And so if you're a Christian and you believe in the whole submission, thing, then I think that the number one headache is this person that I'm required to, and this conversation of submission, as soon as you touch it, it goes like,
yeah, it's an emotional conversation.
It goes crazy. But most women I've spoken to, most married women I've spoken to, don't particularly have a problem with submission. It's the fact that, like you said, there's a church fellowship for young women teaching them how to be good wives. It would be nice if there was a fellowship for young men teaching them how to be good husbands.
True. Yes.
Because I don't think, it's funny that we don't really have a problem submitting to Christ. And the analogy or the comparison is wives submit to your husbands as to Christ. So why do we have a problem submitting to our husbands? Because they have not been trained, or they're not walking like, and so I'm not having a go at the churches this evening.
Not at all.
I'm just saying that, if you're doing young women's fellowship, do young men's fellowship.
Very true.
And let's just end this submission conversation already, But speaking about submission, I won't run away from it. You can't talk about empowerment without talking about submission and the whole, femininity fight. How far do you think we've come in terms of our societal views on submission here in Ghana?
On our societal views of submission
Yes.
in Ghana, I think it's still very much led by the church. And it is a conversation that a lot of women and men fight about quite often.
On social, this week
I see it on social media,
for example. Yeah.
You see it all the time. I think that there's still some way to go because there's not 100% understanding of what submission really is. And I think everyone seems to have their own definition of what submission is. There are some people who the man really feels that submission means I said this, you have to do this, you have to obey everything that I say. And then there are some people who understand that submission may be husband and wife have a conversation about something. They discuss what the issue is. She gives her view. He gives his view. And then he makes the final decision as the head of the family.
Or they come to a compromise that's acceptable
right.
for
so
both.
So those are the different ways that I've seen submission play out. I'm seeing more and more the younger generation, I'll say the millennial generation, having a tendency to lean towards the conversation with each other and giving their viewpoints. And then still you have the man who gives the final decision based on the conversation. There's a few that do the compromise, but most of what I've seen are the ones who have conversation, but the man still makes the final decision. Whereas the older generation, parents tend to be, the man says it's this, then that's what it is. And then she just says, well, that's what my husband said it is, so that's what it is. So I do think that there has been some progress made with respect to what submission is, in my opinion, in what I've seen here in Ghana.
Right. What are your thoughts, Kesa?
Well, I think we still have a long way to go, basically speaking.
Oh, long way to go,
Yeah.
yes, but I still see progress.
Yeah, we definitely still have a long way to go because we still have men that believe that their women aren't submissive enough and then leave them for other women they think will be much more submissive to their taste. But submission, in my opinion, or should I say, maybe because I'm the young millennial age.
Please, we are all young millennials.
Oh,
here.
yes, tell them. Definitely.
I'm not a millennial
definitely.
anymore.
Definitely.
Maybe not millennials, but we're all young here. I mean,
Definitely. I'm still leaning towards let's discuss it, let's reach a compromise, because that makes a happy home, in my opinion. Because if only one person has the say, in Akan we have a proverb that says that you crow any nyansa, or only one person cannot have so much wisdom. So once you've talked about it, discussed it, I've brought my opinion, you've brought your opinion, let's make the decision as a family, because it's not affecting only you, but it's affecting both of us and the children. Do you understand? And I believe that once you begin doing it, the children also learn, and then it becomes a generational something. In my house, we do it this way, and then it goes, and then it transcends. When the person goes to school, goes there, goes to church, goes there, and then very soon it becomes a revolution. Do you understand? Yeah,
yes,
so that's my
yes,
opinion.
madam.
Yeah.
Wager.
Well, so based on the discussions we have, I feel like in terms of submission, like society is just 1% out of like 100. We are even close to like 10% of people understanding, and it's still going to be an issue. I think submission is seen from how you grew up and how you saw things. You get what I mean? And a lot of men like to implement what they saw in their house. Did the older generation have it right? They don't know everything. And now that we've seen that they don't know everything, and the women were being oppressed by the idea of submission, I think it comes to us to change that. And even though there are lots of arguments and a lot of misunderstanding around it, I really feel like submission is a discussion. It's a discussion, it's compromise and sitting down, talking about it and coming to an understanding. It is not any domineering activity. It's not domineering at all. So if the men or people have that idea that it's supposed to be domineering, I say it and we move on, then there's going to be a lot of problem, because we are getting more knowledge, we are getting more information, and we want things to change.
It's true.
Do you feel like there are some women who really just let us down in the fight for empowerment and equality? Like, you know, the women who, and I'm not being judgmental, but the women who would sleep with a man for a job, you know. So let's say 3 of us went for an interview, and we all got the same offer of sleep with me and the job is mine, the job is yours, and one of us did, and so they got their job. Do you think we let ourselves down? We're letting ourselves down by doing that, because Ivy, 51% of Ghanaians are women. So we're in the majority. So numbers wise, I don't understand why we have certain struggles, because if we all decided that there are some things we will not do, there's a code of conduct that we will follow, and no one woman was compromising, then we will be a formidable force. So my question is, are we letting ourselves down?
I think in some ways we are. I think that the dynamic of the way that love, sex, money, and power has been built in the fabric of society right now, a lot of women have allowed themselves to feel they don't have any other choice but to use their bodies to get ahead. I'm not here to judge anybody who's made that decision, but I do think that what you've said hits the nail right on the head, that if every single woman said, I am not going to do this, I am not going to compromise myself, this is what I'm going to do to get this job, and we're all going to stay on the same page, change would happen, because that's how movements happen. Movements happen when everybody comes together collectively to say, no, no more, or yes, we want to do this. If it's only a few people and then the others are kind of, you know, falling by the wayside, then it's hard for us to have a movement that's actually going to progress and make change. So yeah, in a way we do let ourselves down. And even sometimes when I see on social media some of the conversations about women's empowerment, there are some women who join in with the men and say some of the things that tear some women down. And that's not really helpful to the woman's struggle when you have other women who are also pulling a woman down. So I think that we need to start supporting each other more and taking the time to listen and understand each person's circumstance, because sometimes it's people's circumstances that lead them to make some of the decisions that they make. And if the circumstances were better, perhaps the women wouldn't feel that that's the last resort that they have to take.
Or the first resort sometimes, because they're just lazy.
That's right. Could be the first resort. You're right. And then the men who are in those positions of power are taking advantage of their power to get these sexual favors from women. And it's an unfortunate thing, because if those men also had the respect of women and understood a woman's plight, they wouldn't be asking women to do these things.
Right, so I'm going to come to you, Keswa, in a second. Before that, the phone lines are open in 0302-216-541, 0302-216-541. Call and tell me what you think, if we've come far in this fight for equality and empowerment. I have a text message here from Joseph. He says, good evening, Inima and the ladies. I think the fight for equality hasn't been successful because most women don't think of climbing the ladder, because they think, after all, a certain man will come and marry me and take care of me. There are few that are making it, like the Attorney General, Electoral Commission boss, and the rest. Thank you for that, Joseph. There's another one here that says sometimes women are not treated equally in the society due to the kind of traits they show. After giving them the mandate, they go on to forget about the word submission. For this reason, I don't think the society will consider to equalize them into a higher position every time. They should change for the better. So women in power. This one says, I feel if we can't quote, okay, right. Kobna, can you send me that text again, because I can't tell what you're trying to say. Eunice from East Legon says submission is simple. It means women should allow themselves to be pampered. Okay. Secondly, the point of Young Women's Fellowship teaching how to be good wives notes that the fellowship topics and plans are drawn up by the Young Women's Fellowship executive members. They are members of the Young Women's Fellowship. Take note. The church fellowships all have leaderships who are responsible. Let's learn the structure of these institutions and be guided by what, Eunice? I don't understand what you're saying either. What we're saying is that, and fine, if the structure is determined by the leaders, then the male leaders should determine that the men also need to be taught about loving a woman as well. Enima, please put this out on air for us. We need reason for power outage. The ECG customer service. No, look, everybody and what is worrying them. I feel you. I feel
her too. I had no power last night.
And the power has been off here twice since we started the show. So she's saying Regimano and Manette, SS area, Spintex Road. All right. ECG. Well, it's actually PD.
The new name. What's the new name again?
PDS or PSD? PDS. Yes, it's actually PDS now. So PDS people, lights out in Regimano and Emmanuel Kashi from Ashaiman says, good evening, ladies. Are you ladies aware most women prefer to listen to their pastors instead of their husbands? Total lack of respect and unwilling to submit their husbands. This is the problem most men are facing in their marriage. I'm going to ask you a question, Emmanuel. You know, there's a part of the Bible that says that you should be worthy of the calling with which you have been called. So my question to you is, if your wife or your woman is not submitting to you, first point is, are you worthy to be submitted to? Consider that, and then let's have the conversation. From the I feel your pain. Samuel from Millennium City. Intermittent power outages becoming too much in the area. We have experienced more than 15 times power. Yes. We spoke to the. I can't believe I'm doing this on Strong and Sassy. We spoke to the PRO for the PDS this morning, if you were listening to the Super Morning Show, and he did talk about a few localized problems. And if you go on their websites, they have said that they are doing some emergency maintenance, so bear with them. That's what they're saying, but we've put it out there. The ECG number, as far as I know, is 0302-611-611. So feel free to call them and lodge your complaint. I have a caller on the line. I can't see it, so I'm just going to go straight to it. Hi, good evening. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, good evening. What's your name?
This is Joseph from tonight.
Oh, Joseph, hi. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Hope you are still doing well.
I'm very well, thank you. What's up?
Yeah, cool. Madam, I'm enjoying the conversation so well. But one issue of the submission issue. See, when sometimes me being the man, one Saturday I think I don't have any place to go, but I will help you to wash. If it continues 1, 2, 3, The next time, the woman will take her bag and tell that I'm going for a certain meeting or I'm going to do my hair. So the needies are there. Go and wash them. You understand? That's why some of the men, they don't, want to go equal with the ladies. And nowadays, to the ladies, most of them think, as you were saying, somebody will have them and give them the chance. So they don't seem to be learning so that they can go higher. Because they think they have the most property that they can exchange for work or money. So that's another problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for calling, Joseph. So, yeah, I guess I told you guys, when we're talking about empowerment and femininity, it always comes down to submission. And we're so I was going to bring that question to you. So what do you think? Are we fighting against ourselves as women?
And definitely. I always say that a woman's worst enemy is always herself. Definitely, yes. Fellow women are just pulling us down in various ways and in various places that you would not even think to even imagine that this is going on behind your back, and it's a fellow woman who is doing so. Sometimes you put something out there and the comments that you receive from women in connection to submission and in connection to empowerment is really downgrade, and in the end you end up feeling like you shouldn't have even made that step. But it's a movement that must happen. It must occur because we are being subjected in various ways and we are not getting what we deem necessary for us to do what we have to do, but yet still what we ought to do and what we ought to receive, women are not giving us that platform. It will surprise you that if you put out there the topic of submission, the calls that will come, mostly the women will be the ones calling you.
Right.
Yes, they'll be the ones calling you. And we have mothers.
Go on.
We have mothers that, this marriage is not good for the lady. You know that what's going on is not right, but you keep on telling her that, marriage, dear, that's how it is. You just have to stay in it. You just have to continue in it, even though you know that what's going on is wrong.
It's not right, yes. Okay, so I have another caller. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, how are you? What's your name?
My name is Edna.
Edna. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
Thank you. I feel that we have come far. It's not perfect, but now we have men who are supporting their wives. Like you mentioned earlier on, now there are men who are willing to change diapers, who are with the woman every step of the way. So in as much as we are fighting for equality, we should acknowledge the fact that we have come far here. And as I said earlier on, it's not perfect. But we'll get there. Education is making it work.
Yes.
It is making it work. A lot of men now are educated. We have adopted the Western culture, so it's helping. It's helping.
Okay, looks like I've lost Edna there, but
she makes some really good points.
She does, doesn't she?
Acknowledging that there are men who are supporting their women. I think that in acknowledging them, those men, if you are one of those men and you're listening, you have to be a part of supporting women in general, because I feel that the fight for empowerment of women and equal access also has to come from the men, because they're in the positions of power and men listen to other men. So if another man says, I do support my wife, I help her do this, I help her do that, or I help my mother, I help my sister, then men will listen to them. Oh, my friend is doing that?
Definitely.
Wow,
And
so maybe I should do the same.
Okay, so another caller. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, what's on your mind? What's your name and what's on your mind?
I'm Kofi calling from Airport.
Okay, Kofi.
Talking about women empowerment, I would say that women should support themselves. And this is stop the needless jealousy and backbiting. When they also get into high positions, they should learn how to communicate. Most women are perceived to be disrespectful, not because they are not submissive, but because when they get to time of putting their point across, they become too emotional. And sometimes men perceive that to be very disrespectful.
Right.
I support women. Thank you.
Thank you. And obviously, in having this conversation, we can't ignore that women we have to invest a lot in ourselves, especially in terms of emotional intelligence and functioning at the workplace without, the drama and all of the things that we come. I'm going to take my last caller. Hello, good evening. What's your name and what's on your mind?
Hello, good evening. My name is Felix.
Hi, Felix.
I'm calling from Taifa.
Okay.
Yeah, there's this thing that I think most women empowerment programs and platforms are missing. that is about the lack of masculinity. You know, let's look at this statistic. When we're growing up, how many men stayed home to take care of their children? With you ladies in the studio, how many times did you get time to spend with your dad? You spend majority of your time with your mothers. Men spend majority of their times with their mothers. Men were trained by women. And why is the cycle not breaking?
That's a good point.
Definitely.
That's a good. And Michelle Obama talked about that at some point. She said that we should watch the way we raise our boys.
Yes.
Otherwise, we cannot complain about the kind of men that they
And I
become.
agree, and
Very
that goes
true.
back to what I was saying about what you teach children young at
Yes.
a young age
Yeah.
and what you say to them. Because even with girls, there was a caller or one of the text messages or WhatsApp messages earlier where the person said that something about women getting married and taking care of them, that women look for men to take care of them.
Definitely.
It's
Very
because
true.
they're taught that at a young age.
Yes.
You're taught to find your Prince Charming, get married, have a nice wedding, find a man who's
That's
rich.
the dream.
And that's the dream
Yeah.
that they're
Mhm.
taught
That's the
from a
dream,
young
yeah.
age. So then
Yeah.
you grow up with that mindset thinking I'll find a rich man, and then you're waiting for someone to support
just
you.
This message says the telenovela is too much.
It's too much.
I agree.
I agree. It's too much.
And on that note, we are ending Strong Sassy. Because it's 7:41 and George is in the studio. I think we'll continue this conversation next week because there's so many aspects we haven't
There's
talked
so
about, the
much we didn't get
socio-economic,
to.
the cultural. So we'll definitely continue this conversation next week. To all of you who are experiencing doom, so my deepest condolences to you. It will get better, we hope. And we pray. George, who's playing tonight?
We got Bayern Munich up against Liverpool. Big one.
Ooh, you'll never walk alone. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm coming up next, Gary Al Smith and George Addo Jr. Bringing you that match highlights, commentary, and everything. Enjoy. Have a good night.
It's the nation.